5D Mystery School.
I'm not wasting no time. I'm in straight summer lecture mode. Let's get into it. The next lecture in this summer series is called RELIC. Have you been here before? Now, personally, and this is hella biased, but this is my best lecture to date. Do you ever wonder where the wind comes from? I mean, what do we really know about the wind? Okay, hear me out. What if the wind is the reason our sun moves through the sky? The jet streams in the air are comparable to a river with the current that it has. Now, the deeper that you go into our ocean, the harder it is to breathe. Well, the same can be said for our skies. The higher up in altitude that you ascend, the harder it will be to breathe. As above, so below. When you reach the bottom of our ocean, that's a firmament. And the same thing for the top. Wind circulates around our realm in this third density from west to east like the hands on a clock. Is wind associated with rebirth? Well, keep that in mind as we move along. Okay, so I would like to bring your attention back to the path of souls here from the Mississippian culture. You see, they believe that your soul passed through a portal in Orion's belt after your human journey has concluded in your afterlife. The Mississippian culture was not alone in this path to ascension. Indian, Chinese, Norse, Egyptian, Babylonian, and many other civilizations believed that there was a portal in the sky where the gods lived. Now, this hidden message can also be seen in television shows, video games, films, commercials, and even music. Even children's programs and nursery rhymes. Now, once you hear this truth, your soul will remember. It is your job to stay aware of the journey and get ready for your exit out of this ratchet level, out of Earth. Once your time is over here, your life review will show the weight of your actions and your decisions and choices and how they affect your ability to leave here. You see, the ancient Egyptians believed that your soul will be weighed on a scale with a feather, which means you will be given ample amount of opportunities to clear out your karma and leave here. But if you are unaware that everything you do, even in the privacy of you showering, is recorded and seen, then you won't live a life that is rooted in integrity. No matter where you are in life or the past that you carry, you can change and evolve and get in alignment right now. You can mold the journey of your soul. What we are going to do here is take a look at some important notes from ancient civilizations and decode the meaning so that we can demystify the human experience. It is time to shed light on the ultimate truth so that you are in the know. Okay, so as mentioned before, this is simple to understand if you are aware. Also, if you haven't watched my previous lectures, you might get lost. So I would advise you to stop and start from the beginning and make your way back here if possible. The Great Rift. In astronomy, the Great Rift, sometimes called the Dark Rift or less commonly the Dark River, is a dark band caused by interstellar clouds of cosmic dust that significantly extinguish the center and most radio sectors of the Milky Way galaxy from Earth's perspective. In dark, clear night skies, the rift appears as clear as the bright bulge of stars around the galactic center does to the naked eye or binoculars. The rift is largely between the solar system, which is close to the inner edge of the Orion arm, and the next arm inward, the Sagittarius arm. The clouds are an obstruction to millions of the galaxy stars detected at visible wavelengths, which compose a bright hazy band appearing 30 degrees wide and arcing through the night sky. We're going to stop here and move on. Alright, Cygnus OB2 number 12 is an extremely luminous blue hypergiant with an absolute bolometric magnitude of -10.9 among the most luminous stars known in the galaxy. Blue hypergiant. Keep that in mind. This makes the star nearly 2 million times more luminous than the sun, although estimates were even higher when the star was first discovered. Deneb is a first magnitude star in the constellation of Cygnus. Deneb is one of the vertices of an asteroid known as the Summer Triangle and the head of the Northern Cross. Ursa Major, also known as the Great Bear, is a constellation in the northern sky, whose associated mythology likely dates back into prehistory. Ursa Minor, Lesser Bear, also known as Little Bear, is a constellation located in a far northern sky. As with the Great Bear, the tail of the Little Bear may also be seen as the handle of a ladle, hence the Northern American name Little Dipper. 7 stars with 4 in its bow, like its partner, the Big Dipper. And briefly, an asterism is an observed pattern or group of stars in the sky. So the Big Dipper is an asterism. The Big Dipper comprises the 7 brightest stars in the constellation Ursa Major. Do not forget this. Moving on. These 7 stars can be seen referenced in many ancient civilization depictions. These 7 stars are referred to in the Bible as the 7 spirits. Revelation 1:4, John to the 7 churches which are in Asia. Grace be unto you and peace from him which is and which was, and which is to come, and from the 7 spirits which are before his throne. Revelation 3:1, these things saith he that have the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. And then Revelation 4:5 and Revelation 5:6, you can see again the reference to the 7 spirits of God. Now, when decoding the matrix, it's important to understand that in many instances, a person is a reference to another thing. It is coded in signs and symbols. For example, let's look at fallen angels. Ramiel is the morning of God, who becomes Azael and is also called Gadriel, the wall of God. Another, Irakiel, the earth of God. And Restikafa, the world of distortion. Azael means strength, so the name Azael can refer to strength of God. But the sense in which it is used most properly means impudent, showing strength towards, which results in arrogant to God. This is also a key point in modern thought that Azael is Satan. Also important in this identification is the fact that the original name Ramiel is very similar in the meaning to the word Lucifer, morning star, which is a common Latin name of Satan in Christianity. All right, you can pause to read this verse about the Nephilim. Important to remember here is his days shall comprise 120 years, which is our sentence in this human body. Some believe that we have telomere caps on our DNA, and that prohibits us from exceeding 120 years in this human experience. All right, Daniel 7:2. Daniel said, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the 4 winds of heaven churning up the great sea. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out the sea. The first one was like a lion, and it had wings of an eagle. The second beast looked like a bear. Another beast looked like a leopard. And then the 4th beast, pretty much he just describes a dragon, right? Okay, so here are your 4 beasts. You have the lion with the wings, right? You have the bear, you have the leopard, and you have the dragon with all those horns. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. Now, please keep this in mind as we move on. This will make sense later. Now, before continuing on with this great hidden truth, let's look at some different perspectives from different ancient civilizations to see what they say about this truth. Before continuing on to this ancient story, let's briefly look at some different perspectives. First, we have the Armenian. Ancient Armenian mythology called the Milky Way the Straw Thief's Way. According to legend, the god Vahang stole some straw from the Assyrian king Bersham and brought it to Armenia during a cold winter. When he fled across the heavens, he spilled some of the straw along the way. Similarly, in Assyrian or Aramaic Syriac, the Milky Way is called Shiva Tivna, meaning the way of the straw, meaning the path of thieves. Now, I want you to think of the straw man in The Wizard of Oz and the straw man theory. Matter of fact, I want you to think of every character in The Wizard of Oz, and by the end of this lecture, you should understand the symbolism. Eastern Asia. Peoples in Eastern Asia believed the hazy band of stars of the Milky Way was the Silvery River, or the River of Heaven. In one story, the stars Altair and Vega were said to be two lovers who were allowed to meet only once a year on the seventh day of the seventh month, when a flock of magpies and crows formed a bridge over the galactic river. And that day celebrated is called the seventh night. Finno-Ugric. Among the Finns, Estonians, and related peoples, the Milky Way was and is called the pathway of the birds. The Finns observed that the migratory birds used the galaxy as a guideline to travel south, where they believed bird home was. The maiden goddess Lindu was the queen of the birds and the daughter of the Ugu, the king of the sky. After refusing the suits of the sun and the moon for being too predictable and their roots and the pole star for being fixed, she fell in love with the light of the north for its beauty. They became engaged, but the inconsistent light of the north left her soon afterward. The tears of the broken-hearted Lindu fell on her wedding veil, which became the Milky Way when her father brought her to heaven so she could reign by his side and guide the migrating birds, who followed the trail of stars in her veil. Greek and Roman. The Greek name for the Milky Way is derived from the Greek word for milk. One legend explains how the Milky Way was created by Heracles. The story goes that Zeus let Heracles suck on his divine wife's Hera's nipple for milk. When Hera awakened and she saw that she was breastfeeding Heracles, she pushed him away, and then that milk, the spilled milk, became the Milky Way. Now, I bet you just thought about this, huh? If you don't get it yet, don't worry, you will. The Greek and Roman have several versions. Read the last one there. Pause to read. Saturn asked her to nurse the child once more before he swallowed it, and the milk that spurted out when she pressed her nipple against the rock eventually became the Milky Way. Now, moving on to Rhea, is a mother goddess in ancient Greek religion and Greek mythology. The Titan is daughter of the earth goddess Gaia and the sky god Uranus, himself a son of Gaia. She is the older sister of Kronos, who was also her consort and the mother of the 5 eldest Olympian gods. Some of the family tree right there. Roman equivalent is Ops. Canaanite equivalent is Asherah. Uranus in Greek mythology, sometimes written Uranos, is the personification of the sky and one of the Greek primordial deities. According to Hesiod, Uranus was the son and husband of Gaia, Earth, with whom he fathered the first generation of Titans. And of course, you can use several different sources to find these stories. I often use Wikipedia because the information majority of the time is accurate and can be substantiated by other sources. You can take a look at his situation, his siblings, parents, children. All right, let me read and skip a bit, but just to get to the main point here. After his castration, the sky came no more to cover the earth at night. Skipping down to the highlighted part. He was simply the sky, which was conceived by the ancients as an overarching dome or roof of bronze held in place or turned on an axis by the Titan Atlas. Before getting to Atlas, let's look at Anu. Anu, from in sky or heaven, right, was the divine personification of the sky, king of the gods, and ancestor of many of the deities in ancient Mesopotamian religion. Tiamat is a primordial goddess of the sea, mating with Abzu, the god of the groundwater, to produce younger gods. This part is important, please pay attention. She is the symbol of the chaos of primordial creation. She is referred to as a woman and described as the glistening one. It was suggested that there are 2 parts of the Tiamat mythos. In the first, she is a creator goddess through a sacred marriage between different waters, peacefully creating the cosmos through successful generations. So Tiamat is considered the monstrous embodiment of primordial chaos. Some sources identify her with images of a sea serpent or dragon. She is also referenced in Marvel The Eternals. Now, Atlas, holding the world in his shoulders. You may have seen an Atlas statue in your city. You are surrounded by the truth. You just need to look with your third eye. Okay, so Atlas is holding up the world, and we have spoken about Atlas in other lectures, so I'm just going to touch on things I haven't spoke on. This article comes from World History Encyclopedia, Atlas. In Greek mythology, the Titan Atlas was responsible for bearing the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, a burden given to him as punishment by Zeus. Father of many stars and a protagonist in one of Hercules' famous labors, Atlas was also known as a wise man and the founder of astronomy. Now this part is very important, and it is directly connected to my last two lectures, so pay attention. For Plato, he was the eponymous first king of Atlantis, and this giant of a god also gave his name to a huge mountain range in North Africa, the great Atlantic Ocean, and any large collection of maps. Moving on. Chaos cosmogony. Chaos is the mythological void state preceding the creation of the universe, the cosmos, and Greek creation myths. In Christian theology, the same term is used to refer to the gap or the abyss created by the separation of heaven and earth. Let that sink in. Here's the etymology of chaos: emptiness, abyss, to gape, whence English yawn. The cosmic egg of Orphism was taken as the raw material for the alchemical magnum opus in early Greek alchemy. Now, for the highlighted part, it's important. Chaos was further identified with the classic element of water. I'm going to say that again. Chaos was further identified with the classical element of water. So this means chaos is equivalent to water. The light of the soul, by the will of the triune God, made all earthly things appear from the primal chaos. The term gas in chemistry, coined by John Baptist van Helmont, is directly connected to chaos. Now, think of the term order out of chaos. You can pause to read this part that is relevant. Now, I'm going to read you a brief summary of this story. This talks about Tiamat and Apsu. The epic opens with a brief reference to the time when nothing except the divine parents, Apsu and Tiamat, and their son Mumu existed. Apsu was the primeval sweetwater ocean, and Tiamat was the saltwater ocean, while Mumu probably represented the mist rising from the two bodies of water hovering over them. You can see tab 7, he is brought in direct relation with the clouds. These three types of waters were mingled in one, forming an immense undefined mass which contained all the elements that eventually made the universe chaos. In ancient Egypt, in the book of overthrowing the dragon of the deep, Apophis, the Lord of all explains, I am he who came into being as Capri. I was in the watery abyss. I found no place to stand. And then it goes on to tell you about another case that talks about the beginning before the waters. Our father began to think what he should do and finally began to cry, and tears began to flow and fall down below him. His tears formed the present waters that comes from the Native American tribe, the Maidu of California. In all these examples, which primarily originate from the north of the equator, the initial stage of a primordial ocean or void is followed by stages that lead to the emergence of the inhabitable world and finally the first humans. But he crossed that part out. And from sub-Saharan Africa and Australia, in the beginning, in the dark, there was nothing but water, and Mbumba was alone. He vomited the sun. Here we speak about the creation of the sun. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, where Jesus Christ was born. That wasn't my best singing, but it is what it is. But the importance was, Mbumba was alone. He vomited the sun. The sun was created at the North Pole in the watery expanse. Okay, from the Hindus, the purifying bath delivers people from their karma and allows them to go to heaven after death. This is at the festival Kumbh Mela. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This belief has a long prehistory. Taking a bath at certain confluences is followed by a march upstream toward the world tree situated in the lower Himalayas. The pilgrims believe that at the meeting point of the river and sky, one can climb up to heaven. Then it goes on to tell you how water is used for purification. Like when you go to church, right? You get baptized in the water, holy water. In Japan, upon entering a Shinto shrine, visitors must cleanse themselves with water. And Islam dictates that the adherents wash their hands, faces, feet, and parts of their head before prayer in an act called wudu. Washing hands for purification was also common among the Greeks and Romans. I don't believe that part. Closing point of this article. Water was and still is predominant in creation myths and their connected rituals, underlining the close relationship of mythological traditions with their immediate environment. And in many different civilizations today, there are still offerings given to the water. Ashe. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what causes the water to create these waves? What causes the clouds to move in the way they do? What causes the sun and the moon to circulate above us? You ever seen those huge tidal waves or tsunamis in the ocean? What causes those? Well, for this, we're going to revisit the Book of Enoch, chapter 18, verse 1. And I saw the storehouses of all the winds, and I saw how with them he has adorned all creation, and I saw the foundations of the earth. Adorn is to enhance the appearance of, especially with beautiful objects, to enliven or decorate as if with ornaments. And I saw the winds which turned the sky and caused the disk of the sun and all stars to set. I repeat, and I saw the winds which turned the sky and caused the disk of the sun and all stars to set. And I saw the winds on the earth which support the clouds, and I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above. And when I went towards the south, and it was burning day and night, where there were seven mountains of precious stones, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south. Let's pause for a second. Now remember, the Aztecs said they came from the place of the 7 caves, right? But here you can see they're clearly showing like 7 mountains. They said they also came from the place from the 4 rivers, right? And the red rocks. Y'all, they are describing Atlantis. Keep that in mind as we move on. And those toward the east were colored stone, and one was of pearl, one was of healing stone, and those toward the south of red stone. And the middle one reached to heaven like the throne of the Lord of Stadium, and the top of the throne was of sapphire. And I saw a burning fire and what was in all the mountains. A burning fire in all of the mountains. The top was sapphire. Storehouses of all the winds. Wait, I don't think you hear me yet. Let's continue. All right. And I saw a place there beyond the great earth. There the waters gathered together. And beyond this chasm I saw a place, and it had neither the sky above it nor the foundation of the earth below it. There was no water on it and no birds, but it was a desert place. And a terrible thing I saw there, 7 stars like great burning mountains. Wait, hold up. Y'all don't hear me yet. Let's continue. Verse 14. I'm feeling the spirit right now, y'all, so excuse me for being high. And like a spirit questioned me, the angel said, "This is the place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison of the stars of heaven and the host of heaven." So let me repeat. This is the place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison for the stars of heaven and the host of heaven. Now, when you're in prison, you're locked up. And as you can see here with this time lapse, the stars are locked around Polaris. The earth isn't spinning, the sky is spinning in the same place, which is why you see the same constellations every day. It's spinning on the axis of Atlas. And the stars which roll over the fire, these are the ones which transgress the command of the Lord from the beginning of their rising, because they did not come out at their proper times. Just in case you need a refresher on transgress, is to violate a command or law, a sin, to go beyond a boundary or limit. Transitive verb, to go beyond limits set or prescribed by, almost as if the Arctic Circle is the boundary of this game. And he was angry with them and bound them until the time of consummation of their sin in the year of mystery. Zechariah 6, 1-5. Vision of the 4 chariots. Then I turned and raised my eyes and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of bronze. 2 with the first chariot were red horses, with the second chariot were black horses, with the third chariot were white horses, with the 4th chariot dappled horses, strong steeds. Then I answered and said to the angel who talked with me, "What are these, my Lord?" And the angel answered and said to me, "These are the 4 spirits of heaven, who go out from their station before the Lord of all the earth." Revelation 7:1. After these things I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or any tree. Here are those angels controlling the wind. Revelation 12, 3-4 and 7-9. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his head. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. Verse 7. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Now keep this in mind, y'all. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of the old, called the devil and Satan. Cast out of heaven, y'all, right? The dragon, and the dragon is also referred to as the serpent of the old, the devil and Satan. Let's go back to this fire. This comes from space.com. Aurora myths, legends, and misconceptions. Throughout the world, auroras have sparked numerous interpretations, ranging from an omen of impending death to the presence of departed spirits. The remarkable spectacle occurs near Earth's poles and manifests as a stunningly colorful display, almost as if the sky were ablaze with light. Odin was the chief god and ruler of Asgard, revered by all Vikings. They believed that during every battle on Earth, Odin would pick the warriors who would die and join them in Valhalla, where he lived. The Vikings believed the northern lights illuminating the sky were the reflections of the Valkyries' armor as they led the warriors to Odin. Other Nordic legends claimed that the aurora was the breath of brave soldiers who died in combat. In other stories, the aurora was believed to be the Bifrost Bridge, a glowing, pulsing arc which led falling warriors to their final resting place in Valhalla. Valhalla, Valhalla, Valhalla. This is a clip from Marvel's Thor. Asgard. Here's a Bifrost Bridge protected by Heimdall. Here he is. Now you can see how it's hidden in plain sight. Here's Heimdall, played by Idris Elba and Marvel's Thor. In Finland, the northern lights are known as Rivonole, which can be literally translated as firefox. The name comes from the rather beautifully myth that the Arctic foxes were responsible for creating the aurora. They would run through the sky so fast that when their large furry tails brushed against the mountains, they created sparks that lit up the sky. A similar version of this story tells that as the fire foxes ran, their tails swept snowflakes up into the sky, which caught the moonlight and created the northern lights. This would have also helped explain why the lights were visible only in winter, as there is no snowfall in the summer months. Modern day references, here's a fire fox, right? And another star fox. You'll be able to understand why foxes were used shortly. In Icelandic folklore, the northern lights were thought to help ease the pain of childbirth, but pregnant women were not to look directly at them or their child would be born cross-eyed. I'm sorry, that just came out. In Greenland, people held the bittersweet belief that the lights were the spirits of babies who had died in childbirth, dancing across the sky. While in Norway, the northern lights were believed to be the souls of old maids dancing in the heavens and waving at those below. And I highlighted this part because I thought it was really interesting that they put the moonlight into this myth. North American myths and legends. Many of the stories surrounding the northern lights in North American communities arose from the belief that they were the souls of departed ancestors. But not all the North American legends painted the northern lights as quite so benevolent. Some view them as bad omens. The circle of life. This is important. Some Native American stories depict the northern lights as torches held by spirits who were tasked with leading the souls of the recently deceased over the abyss to the land of brightness and plenty. To communicate with people on Earth, they believed the northern lights made a whistling sound, which was to be answered by humans with whispers. Eskimo tribes believe that they can summon the aurora to converse their dead relatives. They also believe the lights were a way of communicating with their ancestors. And when dogs barked at the lights, it was because they recognized their lost companions. In Canada and northern Michigan, Algonquin tribes believe that the creator Earth, Nanabozo, moved to the far north and lit a huge fire to let his people know that even though he was far away, he was still thinking of them. The aurora was a reflection of this fire. European myths and legends. While the northern lights are most frequently and intensely seen in the aurora oval above the Arctic Circle, they do also make occasional appearances further south whenever there is a burst of solar activity. Were also seen as omens of bloodshed. And you can just pause to read the omens of death and some positive premonitions. Estonians, for example, believe that the northern lights were wonderful slaves taking guests to a spectacular wedding celebration in the heavens. Similarly, in Greco-Roman mythology, Aurora is the personification of the dawn and the sister of the sun and the moon. The ancient Greeks and Romans believed that every day Aurora raced across the sky in her chariot, alerting her brother and sister to the breaking of the new day. Watching the northern lights stretch across the sky, it's easy to imagine how this story took form. And then you could pause to read the last part there, Wild Ideas. Now let's speak on the symbolism shown here and what it means. Now, I want you to remember that our world is ran and operated and coded in signs and symbols. So if you understand and understand how to read signs and symbols, you will start to notice everything with your third eye. Also decalcify your pineal gland. So first, just stare at what you see here. You see a man, you see a bull, you see a lion, you see a bird. Again here, same thing, right? However, notice what you see around them, okay? From World History Encyclopedia, the cherub. Cherub? Anywho, you can see here with this image, it is the same symbolism. A cherub was a divine being who dwelt in the heavenly realm of the gods, either as a servant or a mediator between humans and the divine. The ancient universe. All ancient cultures had a concept of a three-tiered universe, which included the heavens, the abode of the gods, earth, the abode of humans, the netherworld, the land of the dead. The heavens were densely populated with gradients of divinity, and a higher god or sometimes a king of the gods ruled above various lower divinities. These lower divinities were assigned power over elements of daily life such as agriculture and the birth process, mother goddesses. At the lower level were demons, who were originally neutral but were eventually blamed for evil. So this is why most gods in ancient civilizations are personifications for things like agriculture and birth and water. They also were associated with statues of griffin, sphinx-like creatures with human heads but a body of a lion. So now you should know, when you see this, or this, or this, and this, they represent this. All right? Now you can begin to understand. All right, now, what if I told you that the four winds dictate the flow of life and each has historically been personified and has a different personality? Okay, so moving from the cherub. Now, before moving on, I'm going to flash some images in front of you. I'm not going to say anything. I would just like for you to look at these images with your third eye. Here we go. So there are many different monuments that pay tribute to the four winds, the pillars of heaven. This symbol lets you know the direction of the wind, the way the sky above us rotates. What I would like for you to understand and overstand here is that all of these symbols are paying tribute to the direction of the wind, the spin of the firmament above us. But in modern day times, we are actually taught to reject these symbols because we are told that they represent something evil, nefarious. Take a look at this relic. Take a look at this relic. And one more for you. Cardinal direction. The four cardinal directions or cardinal points are the four main compass directions, north, south, east, west, commonly denoted by their initials N, S, E, and W, respectively. Relative to north, the directions east, south, and west are at 90-degree intervals in the clockwise direction. Why would they spin at 90-degree intervals? The North Pole is at 90 degrees north latitude. Now, I just want to show you how important the wind is and how these elements were personified and turned into gods in ancient civilizations. This all ties back to the ultimate truth known by several different ancient civilizations. All right, so follow me along here. Fujin, wind god, or Futin, heavenly wind, sometimes also known as Ryobu, is the Japanese god of wind and one of the eldest Shinto gods. He is portrayed as a terrifying wizardly demon resembling a red-headed, green-skinned humanoid wearing a leopard skin, carrying a large bag of winds on his shoulders. You can see he's often shown with Rajan, the god of lightning, thunder, and storms. That's important. Okay, so his name is Fujin, right? Here he is, just so you can see him visually. That's the bag of winds that he's carrying. Take a good look. Here he is with other gods of wind. You might know Boreas, the god of the north wind. And this is who he's often shown with, the god of lightning and thunder. And that's a little bit about the thunder god. Take a look at this. Take a look at the moon phases. Take a look at the direction, how the moon phases out as it's spinning. Okay. This current, this flow is all guided by the wind. And this is where it's coming from. These symbols are all saying the same thing. Now, this is Mount Fuji in Japan. Mount Fuji. The god of wind is Fujin. For behold, he who forms mountains and creates the wind, who declares to man what his thought is and makes the morning darkness, who treads the high places of the earth, the Lord God of hosts is his name. The northeast, east, or mountain wind, usually translated simply as the east wind. The etymology of the name is likely mountain wind, or a direction of the mountains. It is argued that the wind should be referred to as the northeast wind, stemming from the direction of the wind blowing off the Zagros Mountains chain being centered around the northeast. This wind in one ritual text is referred to as a friend of the king Naram Sin, and is also speculated to be associated with Enlil. The Nemoi were wind gods who were each ascribed a cardinal direction from which their respective winds came, and were associated with various seasons and weather conditions. Here's a visual representation, and another, and one more. They were sometimes represented as gusts of wind, and other times were personified as winged men. And Aurora, yes, I said Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, were the parents of the Nemoi, according to the Greek poet Hesiod. And the god of the north wind, Boreas, was considered one of these Nemoi. I hope I'm saying that right. So just to clarify, Boreas, the god of the north wind, the equivalent to Fujin, was considered an Nemoi, child of Aurora, the goddess of the dawn, like the Aurora Borealis. And here you can just see the different wind gods. Boreas is the god of the north wind and the harshest of the Nemoi. His Roman equivalent is called Aquilo. John 3:8. The wind blows wherever it wants, just as you can hear the wind but can't tell where it comes from or where it is going, so you can't explain how people are born of the spirit. Remember, free soul leaves the body for the west, 4-day journey to the edge of the earth disk. Terrifying leap south to the path of souls, the Milky Way. Bridge, river of light, and dog. In Mesoamerica and North America, a number of traditional indigenous cosmologies include 4 cardinal directions and a center. Some may also include above and below as directions and therefore focus on a cosmology of 7 directions. Remember I mentioned 7 mountains? Job 37:9, out of the south comes the storm, and out of the north the cold. Daniel 7:2, Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. Keep that part in mind about stirring up the sea. Matthew 14:24, but the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Luke 12:55, and when you see a south wind blowing, you say, it will be a hot day, and it turns out that way. So you can see each wind has a different personality. Matthew 8:27, the wind and waves obey him, because the wind creates the waves. Now, back to the Great Rift. In the Great Rift, sometimes called the Dark Rift, or less commonly the Dark River, is a dark band caused by interstellar clouds of cosmic dust that significantly obscure or extinguish the center and most radical sectors of the Milky Way galaxy from Earth's perspective. Dark zones obscuring the night sky, lighting mass of the bulk of the Milky Way in a dry atmosphere or at long exposures, were recognized by many ancient civilizations in which a seasonally or regularly dry climate is a frequent feature. In South America, the Inca gave some patterns of darkness and stars names much as normal stellar constellations were, including a series of animals like llamas, a fox, toad, and others thought to be drinking from the great river, the Milky Way, and seen in silhouette. The classical Greeks sometimes describe the Great Rift as being the path of devastation left by Phaeton, who tried to guide the chariot of Helios, the sun god, across the sky before losing control, wreaking havoc, and finally being struck down by a lightning bolt of Zeus. Okay, that's the first connection with the Great Rift in the sun. Alright, so this is from an Astrophysical Journal 1919 about the Great Rift. I did not at first believe in these dark, obscuring masses. The proof was not conclusive. The increase of evidence, however, from my own photographs convinced me later, especially after investigating some of them visually, that many of these markings were not simply due to an actual one of stars, but were really obscuring bodies nearer to us than the distant stars. This comes from sci-fi. Ancient Egyptians believed the sky was a cosmic ocean and an iron orb that dropped meteorites on us. It sounds like a phenomenon that would happen in some bizarre alternate universe. You would stare up into a cosmic bowl of iron, which sometimes cracked and sent shards of itself hurtling to Earth. This is how the ancient Egyptians saw the sky. This is important. Among other things, it was a great bowl of iron holding an otherworldly ocean that the dead would sail across to reach the afterlife. In the pyramid text, the image of the sky as an iron container of water that was also the sky goddess Nut's womb resulted on the sign being used for metals, such as iron, womanhood such as the uterus, or water such as well. The pyramid text continuously referred to the opening of the iron, right? The opening of the firmament, and its separation from the sky. This is a clear metaphor for the opening of the primeval egg, which the king needs to break in order to reverse the natural order, birth, death, and be reborn. The sky is an iron container, but it is also Nut's womb and an egg. You can pause to read here more about the Egyptian death ritual. The opening of the mouth was a death ritual conducted by a priest wearing the mask of a jackal-headed embalming god Anubis. You can see here in the center, there is a opening of the mouth symbolized here with the Aztecs as well. After death, the pharaoh or queen was believed to have to sail across the sea in the sky, which explains the elaborate boats found in some pharaohs' tombs. The pharaoh sails to Orion. This ocean sky was also the womb of Nut, in which the deceased would be reborn, and other gods who were associated with the metal that Egyptians viewed as mystical. Pause to read this excerpt. Alright, so here you can see the Egyptian pharaoh sailing to Orion across the sky. Now I want you to notice that there are 7 stars around him. There's more to that image here. You see he's waving by, there's a bull on the other side going towards these 7 stars. This comes from Learn Religions, the ancient history of the 7 archangels of the Bible. These 7 archangels, also known as the Watchers because they tend humanity, are mythical beings found in the Abrahamic religion underlying Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There was a 9-level hierarchy of the heavenly host: angels, archangels, principalities, powers, virtues, dominions, thrones, cherubim, and seraphim. Again, I want you to count the stars around him. There are 7 stars. And remember, when you see a person in these historical texts, the person could symbolize a virtue, right? Or an element. So these 7 stars are the Watchers. Continuing on. This comes from Medium. Orion, Ophiuchus in the Silver Gate and the Journey of Souls. Astronomical phenomena as tracked through millennia of myth. In ancient Mesopotamia, echoes of Orion sound in the stories of Gilgamesh and the characteristics and iconography of the storm god. His most famous representative tale in Marduk, Orion, and Tiamat, Cetus. So Marduk is Orion, okay? In Old Kingdom Egypt, Orion was represented explicitly by the Saw, the father of the gods, end quote. Swallowed at dawn by the underworld, but had the powers to emerge again into the night sky, end quote. By the time of the New Kingdom, Sa was syncretized with the god of the dead in the underworld, Osiris, whose soul was said to rest in Orion's belt. The actual astronomy may come in handy. See, the rings around the Earth made by the Milky Way and the ecliptic, better known as the ring of the zodiac, happen to be more or less perpendicular. Tracked from Earth, then, The lines of the ecliptic and Milky Way form a giant cross across the sky, with two intersecting points. These 2 points are, roughly, the top of Orion's back arm and bottom left corner of Ophiuchus, where he holds the healing snake. To a majority of ancient Mediterranean and Near Eastern sources, it seems these points mark what are dubbed the gateway of the soul. One, at Orion's hand, marks the silver gate, or the gate of man. The other, more sparsely attested gate in Ophiuchus marks the golden gate, or the gate of the gods. Both are gates on the road traversed by the souls of the dead, often equated with the Milky Way. And both show us why it's so crucial that it was Ophiuchus who betested Scorpius and resurrected Orion in the Greek myth. Whether he's a god or a hunter or a culture hero, Orion is always depicted as a fighter bearing weapons of war. Ophiuchus, meanwhile, is a healer bearing the magic serpent. Orion's gate, therefore, is most often the portal for the souls of the departed, and Orion is the usher to the afterlife. Ophiuchus is a large constellation straddling the celestial equator. Its name comes from the ancient Greek meaning serpent bearer, and it is commonly represented as a man grasping a snake. The serpent is represented by the constellation Serpens. Ophiuchus was one of the 48 constellations listed by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy. The Aztecs, meanwhile, appear to have agreed with our latter sources. They equated Orion with Mexicatl, the god of hunting, storms, and the Milky Way and the heavens in general, father of their southern constellations, and of Quetzalcoatl. As god of the Milky Way, Mexicatl personified the souls of dead warriors who ascended to the sky and became stars. Back to an earlier article. The Milky Way, viewed far from city lights, is a glowing path which can be seen arching across the sky. This path is formed from the light of millions of stars, most of which we cannot see individually. The glowing light coincides with the midplane of our galaxy named the Milky Way. Back to the Dark Rift. The Dark Rift has many Mayan mythic identities. It is the Black Road, the road to the underworld, a crevice in the branches of the cosmic tree, the Milky Way, the mouth of the cosmic monster, a jaguar or snake with tree-like features, the birth canal of the cosmic mother, also known as Nut's womb. And underneath you can see that she has the pillars of heaven and the underworld. Here you can see the firmament on top, and underneath, those are the pillars of heaven representing the wind. Basically, this is squaring the great circle. This is the womb of the cosmic mother. This is our Milky Way. We'll come back to this shortly, but it's time for the conclusion. Now I want you to take a look at Orion's belt and the Great Pyramids that coincide with the alignment. This is symbolic for the journey of the soul. Now, from the Great Pyramid of Khufu, you can see their viewpoints were Sirius, Orion, Osiris, right, and the Draco, and of course the sun and moon. China, Mexico, Egypt, Orion's belt. Look at the connection. Look at this symbol with your pineal gland. Take a look at this symbol with your third eye, squaring the great circle. Just take a note of everything you see here. The sun, the moon, the wind. Let this earthwork speak to your soul. The squaring of the circle is one of the many archetypes motives which form the basic patterns of our dreams and fantasies. But it is distinguished by the fact that it is one of the most important of them from the functional point of view. Indeed, it could even be called the archetype of wholeness. Carl Jung. Just another look at what I was showing you, right? You have Taurus, Orion, Gemini, Canis Major, right? Southern sky, northern sky. You have Sagittarius, Draco, Ursa Major, Cancer, okay? These are constellations and stars targeted by the 4 shafts in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Take a look at this imagery with your third eye. There is sailing through the river in the sky. Now when you start to see these hieroglyphics, you should understand what you are seeing. Okay, so you have the Milky Way here, right? You have Vega, Deneb, Altair, Antares, the galactic center. Here's another look at that. the Milky Way galaxy, the dark rift, right? The sun, you can see the path of the sun going into the dark rift, December 21st, 2012. According to Islam, the Asarit is the bridge over which every person must pass on in order to enter paradise. You have to pass this bridge on the day of your resurrection in order to enter into paradise. There's something called the Shinvant Bridge. It's the same thing. It's a bridge that's guarded by 2 bridge guarding dogs. And it tells you, depending on how you live your life, you will go on a different path on this bridge. Often, the Shinvant Bridge is identified with the rainbow or the Milky Way galaxy, such as in Professor C.B. Till's History of Religion. That's the part I want you to remember. The Shinvant Bridge is identified with the rainbow or with the Milky Way galaxy. Now ask yourself, does a rainbow have anything to do with the Milky Way galaxy? Keep that question in mind for later. Just remember the Bifrost Bridge from the Nordic mythology. This logo is symbolic of the Rainbow Bridge, the entrance to the Milky Way. Alright, going back to the Azarat Bridge, it's said to be thinner than a strand of hair and as sharp as the sharpest knife or sword because of its danger. Below this path are the fires of hell, which burn the sinners to make them fall. Those who perform acts of goodness in their lives are transported across the path and speeds according to their deeds, leading them to the pond of abundance, Had al-Kudar. And you can pause to read the background here. The Senzu River, the River of 3 Crossings, is a mythological river in Japanese Buddhist tradition similar to the Chinese concept of Huan. Note the other comparisons. Before reaching the afterlife, the souls of the deceased must cross the river by one of the 3 crossing points, a bridge, a ford, or a stretch of deep, snake-infested waters. The weight of one's offenses while alive determines which path an individual must take. And of course, the Bifrost in Norse mythology is a burning rainbow bridge that reaches between Midgard, Earth, and Asgard, the realm of gods. Heimdall is attested as having 3 other names. Don't forget, this is Heimdall protecting the Bifrost Bridge. Alright? Now his name, Vinler, translates as either the one protecting against the wind or wind sea. Wind. In connection to the Bifrost Bridge. And Heimdall is the son of Odin. Heimdall keeps watch for invaders in the onset of Ragnarok from his dwelling Himmelborg, where the burning rainbow bridge Bifrost meets the sky. So this quite literally means that Heimdall is the brother of Thor and Loki. Scholars have proposed that the bridge may have originally represented the Milky Way and have noted parallels between the bridge and another bridge in Norse mythology, Labru. Hope I said that right. Now let's take a brief field trip to the Inca mythology. Pause to read. Now, the Inca civilization took place in the current territories of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. Now, Amaru, the sacred serpent, was a serpent or a dragon deity often represented as a giant winged serpent with crystalline eyes, a reddish snout, a llama head, taruku horns, and a fish tail. Last sentence before the last paragraph. Amaru is a mythical being that is also related to the underworld, the earth, and earthquakes. Now just take a look at this Incan symbol. Look at this with your third eye. Now this symbol is the same as this pyramid in Mexico. The top is supposed to reach the heavens, right? And the 4 doorways represent the 4 winds coming out of the 4 cardinal directions: north, east, west, and south. And the stairways are for the wind. Let's take a brief look at the Aboriginal Australian afterlife. The Aboriginals believed in a place called the Land of the Dead. This place was commonly defined as being in the sky world. This was supposedly where a deceased person's soul went, as long as certain rituals were carried out during their life, and at death, they were thought to then be allowed to enter the land of the dead. Like Catholics, the Aboriginals believed in resurrection, in this case being that one by one, spirits are being resurrected into living beings back into Australia. It is because of this reason that they believe that life is a never-ending cycle, aka the circle of life. You are born, you die, you are born again. another version of this infamous Aboriginal idea known as eternal dreaming. This was a huge part of their culture and formed the basis of many of their ideals. In this version, death is seen as a rebirth from your previous life, similar to the idea of a life cycle. You are reborn again. Another belief is that the soul of a person who has passed away goes to the land of the dreaming ancestors, which is where all of their gods and ancestors are. Some believe that you had two souls and they merged together during death. I know this could also be viewed as your twin flame. Join me for a story. The llama is one of the most important animals for the Incas. Its silhouette appears in the dark areas between the stars. For this reason, llamas with black fur were very important in the Incan religion. Two very bright stars in the constellation of Centauri represented the black llama's eyes. Incan legend tells us that Yacana, the llama, was wandering with her baby along a river that crossed the entire sky, the Milky Way. The more she walked, the blacker she became. Her baby accompanied her throughout the sky. When the baby became hungry, Yacana fed him. When Yacana woke up, it became daytime. It is said that the man who finds himself in a place where Yacana has fed her baby will have good luck for the rest of his days. Now this story of the black llama staring at your mama. Now let's take another look at the Milky Way with some names that it was given by ancient civilizations. Here you have a shepherd, a fox, a baby llama, a partridge, toad, and a serpent. Partridge and a pear tree. So that story of the llama, of course, talks about this journey to the Milky Way. Let's continue. First image of a supermassive black hole at the center of Milky Way galaxy revealed. For the sake of time, I just wanted to show you the title here. Don't get on me for not reading the article, but I just wanted to show you the title and how they speak to each other using signs and symbols. Black hole at the heart of our galaxy is on crash course, space-time ripples reveal. Gravitational waves coming from the supermassive black holes like the one at the center of the Milky Way are offering clues to their fates. Let me repeat. Gravitational waves coming from the supermassive black holes like the one at the center of the Milky Way are offering clues to their fates. From the Atlantic, the last one was from the Wall Street Journal. Behold, the bottomless pit holding everything together. Astronomers have captured the Milky Way's supermassive, mysterious abyss, 27,000 light years from the Earth. Wait a minute, 27,000 light years from Earth? 20,007 leagues under the sea? Some more imagery for your subconscious mind. After this lecture, I would love for you to go back and watch the Disney film Soul. Rewatch it with your third eye. Now, I just want to go back to this, right? Referring to Atlas. It was here that, in punishment for his gross lack of hospitality, the Titan was transformed from a shepherd into a huge rock mountain by Perseus using the head of Gorgon Medusa with her deadly stare. Okay, let's break this down. Atlas is punished with holding up the world, and he was transformed into a huge rock mountain by Perseus, right? Using the head of the Gorgon Medusa. Let's get into it. Okay, Perseus from Britannica. Now, it's important to note that he is the son of Zeus, and Zeus is the god of thunder. So he was given winged sandals in the Cape of Hades. Remember, Hades is the lord of the underworld. And Perseus also married Andromeda, which is supposedly our neighboring galaxy. Later, Perseus gave the Gorgon's head to Athena, who placed it on her shield and gave the other accoutrements to Hermes. I want you to remember Hermes is Mercury, and Mercury is Thoth. Thoth is an ancient Egyptian deity. In art, he was often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or a baboon, animals sacred to him. His feminine counterpart was Shishat, and his wife was Ma'at. He was the god of the moon, wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphs, science, magic, art, and judgment. His Greek equivalent is Hermes. In the central Osiris myth, Thoth gives Isis the words to restore her husband, allowing the pair to conceive Horus. Horus is on the left, Osiris in the middle, Isis on the right. And here's the genealogy. For further explanation on Horus, go and watch my Egyptian lecture from 3 years ago. I also speak on the other gods as well. And here's the Eye of Horus. Horus, also known as Heru or Hor, an ancient Egyptian, is one of the most significant ancient Egyptian deities who served many functions, most notably as god of kingship, healing, protection, the sun, and the sky. Heru is also symbolic of Jesus, born of a virgin birth. Let's take another look at this Aztec relic, right? You got a serpent, dragon, temple, wind, light, flower, storm, flint, quake, condor, eagle, jaguar, reed, grass, monkey. These are all symbolic of the same story, y'all. And in the center, you see on the four sides there, you see the serpent and the opening of the mouth in the center. So don't forget, Quetzalcoatl. For a brief side note, I just wanted to go back to the Watchers from the New King James Version. This decision is by the decree of the Watchers, and the sentence by the word of the Holy Ones, in order that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, gives it to whomever he will, and sets it over the lowest of men. Now back to these mythological and symbolic creatures, right? The lion, the bear, the cheetah, the dragon. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. Draco is a constellation in the far northern sky. Its name is Latin for dragon. Here's Draco, surrounded by Cygnus, Lyra, Hercules, okay, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. Here's Ursa Major. Lyra is a small constellation. It is one of the 48 listed by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy. Lyra was often represented on star maps as a vulture or an eagle carrying a lyre, hence sometimes referred to as Fortocadens, falling vulture or falling eagle. Here we go, Lyra. You can see Lyra right next to Hercules, Cygnus. Modern depictions of Lyra is Lyra the lion. Camelopardalis is a large but faint constellation of the northern sky, representing a giraffe, but also representing a leopard. Here's Camelopardalis. Here's Ursa Major, again next to Draco. So something I really want you to note here is that Hercules is right next to Lyra, okay? The man is next to the lion. So when you see this, I don't want to talk about Anunnaki, I want to talk about the real meaning. Now you see the bag in their hand and how they have wings? You remember the Nimoy? The man with wings, right? He's holding a pine cone. Now I want you to remember this god Fujin holding a bag of wind. What do you suppose is in that bag? Half lion, half man with wings. So when you see this, you should know what it represents. Pine cone is, now if you've been enrolled in 5D Mystery School for a while, you should know what this pine cone represents. Take a look at this imagery with your third eye. Okay. The pine cone represents the pineal gland, the wisdom given to man. It's your consciousness, your subconscious mind resides here, the seat of the soul. This is where the return of Christ happens with the cerebrospinal fluid. This is the optic thalamus, the light of the world. As above, so below. Now the bear is represented by Ursa Major. Lyra constellation is the lion. Camelopardalis is the cheetah or the leopard. And the dragon is the Draco constellation. These aren't actual animals. These are constellations. Now, the Pegasus constellation is a constellation in the northern sky named after the winged horse Pegasus in Greek mythology. Now, I want you to notice inside of the Pegasus constellation, you have the name of 4 men. The bordering constellation is Andromeda, Pisces, Aquarius. But these 4 men represent the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse inside of the Pegasus constellation. Now, look at the Milky Way. This is the great rift, the dark rift, the crack in the sky, the cosmic egg, the cosmic mother's womb. All of these ancient civilizations were telling the same story. If you're transformed from a shepherd to a mountain, That mountain represents the great mountain at the North Pole, right? Also the tree of life that's connected to the Rainbow Bridge. This also represents the tree of life. Now you see the tree of life protected by the anemoi, and the anemoi are responsible for the wind. Let's take another look at this tree of life. Again, here you have the great monument at the center, the great pyramid at the center, the firmament above. Same thing seen here for the Navajo as it was for the Mayans. In the Inca, right, this great mountain at the center, the sun and moon rotating on top of us. You can see on the border here, they have a line of great mountains. That is the border. You can see you have the snakes above, right, representing those serpents. Medusa is also symbolic for the serpent. In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up out the great sea. Now, remember I told you these monuments are to pay homage to where they come from. So this pyramid in Mexico represents the pyramid at the center of our flat earth plane of existence, because that's where they come from. That's Aztlan. This is from Mount Sumeru. You have the temple in the center surrounded by this, what I want to call a dragon that's eating his tail, the great serpent. Now I'm going to go back to the book of Enoch, chapter 18, verse 4. And I saw the winds which turned the sky and caused the disk of the sun and all the stars to set. And I saw the winds on the earth which support the clouds, and I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above. And of course the seven mountains with the great one in the center. Now, Atlas was responsible for bearing the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, a burden given to him as a punishment by Zeus, right? The god of thunder and lightning, representative of the sky above. Atlas, he was the king of Atlantis. So this Atlas, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, he's the king of Atlantis, also known as Aslan. The people of Mu also said they came from the place of four rivers. The place of the four rivers, Atlantis, Aslan. This is where Atlas lives, bearing the weight of the world on his shoulders. This is the end of earth. This is the prison of the stars. This is where the shepherd was turned into a mountain. This is where Medusa was defeated. All of these symbols represent the rotation around the great center from west to east, the direction of the wind. The four directions, the four winds. And you can see which way they're turning here. Now you see this god, he's blue. You can see his hands, north, south, east, west. Blue god here. He's blue because of Cygnus, OB2. Cygnus is an extremely luminous blue hypergiant with an absolute bolometric magnitude. Among the most luminous stars in the galaxy, this makes the star nearly 2 million times more luminous than the sun. Cygnus lives here in the Great Dark Rift. Here's the star of Ishtar, or the star of Inanna, and she was the queen of heaven. Her dad was Enlil, and she is represented here. So you see here, look at this imagery. You can see that they are standing on one side, and on the other side the sky changes, and you can see 7 stars. That change represents the great rift. Those people on the ground, those are the ones who've passed in the afterlife. Those 7 stars, remember, they are the watchers, okay? Another name for watcher is angel. And they even show you in Marvel. According to Egyptian myth, when Ra became too old and weary to reign on earth, he relinquished and went to the skies. Ra was said to travel through the sky on the barge, providing light to the world. Each 12th of his journey formed one of the 12 Egyptian hours of the day, each overseen by a protective deity. When the sun set and twilight came, he and his vessel passes through the Ikat, the horizon in the west, and traveled to the underworld. In the west? That's right, the Mississippians also believe the free soul leaves the body for the west. Now, where is the edge of the Earth disk? Where's this terrifying leap south to the path of souls, the Milky Way? Okay, so back to this. At times, the horizon is described as a gate or the door that leads to the Duat. There, he would have to sail on the subterrestrial now and cross through the 12 gates and regions, with each hour of the night considered a gate overseen by 12 more protective deities. Every night, enormous serpent Apophis, the god of chaos, attempted to attack Ra and stop the sunboat's journey. After defeating the snake, Ra would leave the underworld, returning, emerging at dawn, lighting the day again. And here is a visual representation of that journey. But before you take that journey to the Milky Way, your soul has to be weighed up against the weight of a feather. So if you want to make it to heaven, as I mentioned before, you have to match the energetic frequency of the gates of heaven to leave, which means you have to live a just and righteous life. Also want to go back to this blue Santa and Krishna, that both represent Cygnus. Now, I remember saying a while ago that I intuitively felt that the Aurora Borealis was the journey of souls, like the pathway of souls, right? And you can see here the Aurora Borealis is going to lead you to the dark rift, the Milky Way. The Aurora Borealis is the rainbow bridge. You remember the bridge to Valhalla, protected by Heimdall? Well, that bridge is going to lead you to the dark great rift, the Milky Way. It's the bridge of souls. Also, speaking of rainbows, take a look at the great rift here. Get this in your subconscious mind. Take a look at the formation. Now, the rainbows you see during the day are representing that great rift. Refractions from heaven. It's the grid system above us that touches the grid system below us. As above, so below. And going into the dark rift is going off grid. Ancient civilizations paid homage to this journey in any way possible. So then, in bringing this lecture to a conclusion, I ask you, have you been here before? Your soul remembers the journey somewhere over the rainbow. Important side note, it's no coincidence that Over the Rainbow by Judy Garland was written for the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. It's almost like you can taste the rainbow. So if you are not aware, you're going to be here now and later. But the goal is for your soul to make it to the Milky Way. Every single day you are touched by the wind which comes from the kingdom of heaven, and the breeze is powered by the trees. The mountains direct the flow. Side note, these great mountains used to be trees. The water is the oldest relic of them all. It's the primordial chaos. And out of that, we have the order of life. Ancient mythology is to be read with your third eye to decode the symbolism. So when you see this, you should see the four winds, the tree of life, and the firmament above us. Your awareness will show you the answers. You're just here for a short time, but remember, there's no place like home. I want you to connect with the Christ consciousness within so you can see the symbols hidden in plain sight. You truly have to remember who you are. The answers will be revealed to you. You were given the vision to see. Notice the symbolism yet. Now, it's super important for you to remember who you are and for you to know about this journey so that during your human experience, you can live a life that will set you free from the chain of reincarnation. Your frequency that you're vibrating at has to match the frequency of the gates of heaven. You can continue to play the game or you can beat the game. As above, so below. You have to tap into your light of the world, your pineal gland. Decalcification and utilization is key. You hear about the myth of the Tower of Babel and how everybody was split up to speak different languages, but they all used their language to tell the story of the same truth. So from now on, you can see this and you can take it literal, or you can look at the symbolism. So above you, you have the Milky Way. right? You have that stellar halo. Remember where you came from so you know where you're going. So when you see this, and know this, for the truth shall set you free. The secret is written all around you. For this word is God, and you are God, and you came from the kingdom of heaven.
5D Mystery School.